For me, Assassin's Creed is essentially a long, epic story of a guy in the prison going in a machine called the Animus, and he's going to relive the life of his ancestors. In Assassin's Creed 2, we follow Desmond, who's going to live the life of Ezio Auditore di Firenze.
The meaning of Ezio's name, in following with the tradition established by the first Assassin's Creed, is that Ezio means eagle.
Eagle, or the flying one. Its origins come from Greece.
He's a young noble from Florence at the beginning of the game.
He's studying to follow in his father's footsteps. His father, as far as we know, is a banker.
As a rich boy in Florence, he doesn't really see the hardships of the peasants and other poor people. And it doesn't really affect him either. He's more of a carefree guy. He does what he has to do. He's got lots of money. He's got lots of friends. And in regards to the women, he's very charming. He always says the right thing. The right thing to surprise them, to stand out of the crowd, and that's why they have a really hard time resisting to his charms.
Ezio is a typical Italian nobleman in many ways. He's a fiery, violent, proud personality. He's terribly proud of his family.
He deals with noble people and with peasants in a very polite and courteous way, even if he's about to stick a hidden blade in your skull, right?
He has a very strange talent that his father is aware of, which is the eagle vision from the first game.
Nobody really knows how come he has that, but we sort of find out in the game.
At one point, something tragic happens to himself and his family.
What happens is that the same people that Ezio considered to be dear family friends actually turn on him.
People that are very close to him are taken from him, and becoming an assassin and acquiring those skills will give him the abilities necessary to exact revenge.
When you're used to just living free and living without a worry in the world, and all of a sudden the entire Florentine army is looking for you, and you have to protect your mother, you have to protect your sister, and you have to defend yourself. Changes everything in his life.
So going from this life of la dolce vita, in Italy, it will have to become this guy who needs to kill in order to survive.
We see Ezio progressing very much so throughout the game, physically as well as emotionally and in his personality.
As a player, you will go just like the main character, in the same, you'll be at first just like you and I, and then will become this badass main character.
Before, he just wants vengeance, but later on, he wants justice.
Ezio becomes an assassin in order to avenge the tragedy that's befallen his family. People that are very close to him are taken from him, and he's been branded a traitor and a criminal. The city guards who once respected him now hunt him, and the very people that claimed they would help him in his time of need have now turned against him.
Right after this event happens, he finds that mercenaries, prostitutes, and thieves are not the people that he should be fearing, but actually are the most trustworthy people.
What was important for me when we build the world of Assassin's Creed 2 is that you felt that you were part of one group of individuals. So we said, let's use the underworld, and so that's your family.
The three factions that we have are thieves, courtesans, and mercenaries, which will all help you either distract, elude, or literally beat up your enemies. The faction leaders will be met along the path in Assassin's Creed, and they will be asking you a couple of things to help them as they're helping you. So it's sort of a mutual trade-off between the two.
A lot of people will end up helping Ezio. There's his uncle Mario that he hasn't seen many years that will help him tone his fighting skills. There's Machiavelli as well that we find in the game, and finally obviously Leonardo da Vinci, who's going to become quickly a very close friend of Ezio, not to mention a test dummy for his wild inventions.
Leonardo is going to be one of your main friends, and basically he's going to act as a Q in James Bond.
For Assassin's Creed 2, we have the notion of crowd groups, where in Assassin's Creed 1, the crowd was a little bit individualistic, where no one would bunch up together. Now we really have formations that are moving along the city.
You can blend in, you can steal for everyone you see, like because we have this economic system, so the economic system gave us the opportunity to use the crowd differently than in Assassin's Creed 1.
Banking came up just a few years previous to the time period that Assassin's Creed 2 is set. Some of the most prominent Italian families actually went into banking. The citizens of each of the cities started to move away from trade, and coins actually became a marketable currency.
So we decided to say, that's great, because we want to have it for the game, and our subject tell us that, you know, it makes sense. So we combine the two, and that's why there's an economic system in Assassin's Creed 2.
The most exciting thing about the economic system is giving the players the choice to do what they want with their money. So instead of feeding the player rewards at a given time that is set by the level designers, we give you a whole bunch of options that the player can actually choose when and where to purchase.
At the beginning of Assassin's Creed 2, what I wanted is really to change the structure of the missions to, instead of having a main structure, it's to have different structure each time you start a new sequence of missions.
There's a story that will be there. They'll drive the missions, surprise you, maybe missions that you start and you think they're going to do something, maybe you'll have a U-turn and do something else instead.
Hey, I remember you.
You never know really what's going to happen next in Assassin's Creed 2.
There's a little bit for everybody. We're really trying to make sure that the game appeals to as many people as possible.
We have retry points still in AC2 with climbing puzzles.
Then you'll have, you know, collectible quests.
There are crowd missions.
There's the narrative mission.
You have these missions that you can do to change your notoriety in the city.
There's also the city life,
which are just randomly occurring acts throughout the world.
For example, we have the messenger. The messenger who sees Ezio, sees the player, will run away. So it's up to the player to say, am I chasing him to get the letter he's carrying or not?
We have one guy that we call the pickpocketeer. So basically that guy will be able to steal the money from the assassin and start running. So what do? You continue your mission, or you go back to that guy to be able to get the money.
Throughout the world, you're gonna find exciting, you know, memorable historical landmarks that also have interiors that you get to play through with lots of acrobatics and running and jumping. And these interiors lead to tombs that have been hidden for hundreds of years that only the assassins can find.
You find these caves, you find old rundown castles, you can find a church.
And you'll be, you know, doing free running around the church to eventually find a hidden treasure.
The player's going to be inside the Duomo, and, you know, that interior is one of the biggest interiors in Italy. And, you know, jumping and climbing through all of it is really going to give you a sense of the awesomeness of this building and your incredible freedom.
For sure, these moments will be like a wow moment. It's like having an extra game or extra games inside the game that you bought.
So each missions are different, a lot more variety. So it's not about doing investigation and assassination 9 times. It's really more like each time a mission can lead to a beat-up mission, can lead to a chase, an escape, can lead to an assassination.
It's quite overwhelming, the amount of stuff there is.
Well, having more missions requires us ultimately to have more cutscenes and more cinematics, but I think we're adding a lot of value to these to the player. And a couple of examples of this is you could still control the camera like you did in AC1. People like that feature a lot. We also have mini branching cutscenes where the player will have to interact at a specific time, and this may have 2 different effects. So if you hit the cinematic at the wrong time, then you might just hug a lady, whereas if you hit it on the right time, well, who knows what's going to happen.
For Ezio, since he's not an assassin at the beginning, I wanted to create this sense of even more brutality, even more viscerality into it, which is like you feel more the blade, you feel more that it's tough to assassinate someone.
Real violence is brutal. You can't kill someone by just slashing at them with a sword. You know, when you kill someone, there's an effect. Your weapon reacts, you know, gets stuck in their bodies. You know, they react to being hit. This is really one of the core concepts of combat.
We want to just push it to the point where every time people see a move, they're like... Or you want to show your friends. So you bring them over and you say, look at this man do it, and they're all like, oh my God. That's what we wanted to bring.
Another thing we wanted is to make fight better, but also make it so that fight wasn't the only tool in the game. So in AC2, there will always be an option for escaping.
You have to play smart. You can't always fight every fight because you're going to lose. So you have to pick and choose your battles.
So there's going to be 3 guards archetypes in the game. The first one being the Brute. The Brute is going to be a huge challenge in terms of fighting. It's going to be strong.
They are not very smart. They're your typical kind of big oafs. And they're very susceptible to sort of social gameplay. So you can blend, they'll never figure out that you're in a blend spot.
Then we have the Seeker, the more paranoid type of guard, you know, the guy who's searching to see where Ezio is, and even like in Veil of Hate or in a group of people, you can say, oh, you're there.
The third is the Agile, and the Agile is obviously against the free running. Not only is he good at catching you when you're free running, he can also do free running. The other thing that's really cool about the archetypes is that each one uses a special weapon. You can actually steal people's weapons now. By stealing the archetype's weapons will unlock a whole new set of combat attacks.
Okay, this is a type of guy, he has a spear, you know, spears are long, so I can grab it and take it from him and kill someone else. Whereas a Brute is heavily armored, and you can pound on him all day long with your weapon and not really get anywhere. You've got to be clever to beat this kind.
We made a technology that basically allows an AI to say, oh, okay, instead of just fleeing down a street, if I'm capable, why not flee up a building or flee up a ladder or flee across free-running elements or boats or whatever? Instead of just having this sort of predictable path where you can see the guy taking off, now the player is going to have to adjust, and the AI will then counter-adjust to what the player is doing.
In AC2, we have a bunch of new weapon types. We have maces, two-handed weapons, axes and swords.
Hammers, spears, halberds, different types of daggers, hidden blades, 2 hidden blades.
These allow for a lot of interesting variety to the combat. In AC1, the only thing you could do in fight with the hidden blades was counter kills. There was nothing else. But this time around, it counts as a full weapon.
You're going to want to be more visceral. You're going to want to attack. You're going to want to kill. You're more of a badass.
Progression for me is life.
Progression for me is one of the most important parts of the game.
So progression is really important for us in Assassin's Creed 2.
You live the life of someone. That was the main idea, you know, when we say, let's have a character for over 30 years.
We really want the player to feel the same emotion that the character has throughout his quest to avenge his family.
I'll kill you for what you've done!
Our game begins in 1476 and it ends in 1503. So it's a considerable span of years for a video game.
It's the height of the Italian Renaissance. This is when the most beautiful paintings, the greatest sculptures, the most wonderful architecture are all being built and created. And at the same time, it's a period of political intrigue and drama and violence as well.
What do you want, Vieri?
So many things. A prettier bride. Oh, and yes, your life.
There was a lot of, like, really sparks of energy and interesting ideas that happened during that period. We also want our character to go through a change.
I think the mission structure is completely compatible to the time span that we want to cover. In the sense that it allows us to have some flexibility and really focus on the most poignant events that happen in history and in Ezio's life throughout his progression.
Throughout the game, he's going to encounter people.
I was hoping you could help me with something.
He will have friends that will teach him abilities. He will be taught fighting by his uncle. He will learn a few skills from the different groups of different factions in the crowd.
I'm going to teach you how to survive.
He'll also learn by himself a few tricks. And this will make sure that the player progresses in the game in a way that always varies the experience.
If your character isn't evolving and it's not, like you're not looking, oh, what's my next new toy, or what's the next thing that I'm going to get to play with, the game will feel stale. So it's very, very important that the game feels refreshing. You know, every new mission that you play, there's something to look forward to at the end of it.
The more and more the game progresses, the more and more anger he has, and the more he has to let out that anger. So the moves just keep coming and coming and coming on what he can do with the different weapons that he has.
You start with just basic sword attacks and the ability to defend yourself. And then we introduce disarming and counter kills, and then from there it all opens up.
Player will be requested to actually buy some of his gear. For example, we have the armors, which will give him more health points, hit points in general.
We start with various sets of armor, the first one being just leather armor, and then it moves throughout more metal armor, provides him more protection.
In AC1, we sort of gave the player, without any choice, this is what you're going to learn next. Whereas in AC2, the player has much more choice.
Since such a large part of Ezio's story is him, you know, answering the question, who am I and what am I doing here and what's my purpose? You can't answer that question in a year or two. You know, it takes the span of almost his entire life.
Somewhere on a rooftop, there's a hero in a hood. Fear him not, lest you who have sinned, for his cause is good.